know is...
You think they wanted you out of New York?
Listen, I was arrested. It's on video in New York 5 years ago for nothing. Okay, we were down there protesting at Fox News. They had a live event.
What were you protesting?
We were protesting media propaganda.
Okay.
But the point is, I was protesting Geraldo Rivera. The point is that I was in New York. He was having an outdoor deal. We went down there, and the police came. An undercover guy on video, this is in my film Truth Rising, points at me, and they go and arrest me and almost pulled my shoulder out of its socket.
Were you?
Okay,
did you
so
ever
I've already
ask
been in a New York jail.
Did you ever ask the police why they did that to you? I mean, you were protesting peacefully, right? You weren't provoking anybody.
No, you can go watch the video. You can pull it up. Alex Jones arrested in New York. Go watch it. Listen, my point is, I know when people are basically hunting you. You know when a tiger is crawling on its front paws about to pounce on a gazelle or something, okay? You know that, and you know when cops are on your butt planning something, they had a look in their eyes like they were planning something. You know the difference when cops have just got you staked out to see if you're planning something, and the difference when they're acting really aggressive and bugging their eyes out at you like they want to tear your head off. And my instinct was, get the hell out of here.
You think they don't want you?
Now, do you think you're safe in Texas? Is that why you broadcast from there?
Listen, I go out. I've snuck on military bases to cover urban warfare drills. I snuck into Bohemian Grove. I, go out there without bodyguards and do all this stuff. I'm not normally a timid person. I'd gone in. I'd gotten my Piers Morgan interview. I had the flu. So when you're dizzy and puking, do you feel like going to jail?
Are you in fear for your life?
Not generally. I mean, I'm in fear for my life when I drive to work. That's the most dangerous thing in this country,
right?
Is automobiles. But listen, let's just be specific here. I'm bold. I'm the opposite of fearful. I was off balance. I was sick in New York. I was going off pure adrenaline, and that's why. I mean, imagine, Howard. I'm sure before you've had an event or some big thing you've got to do. You're a consummate professional. Have you ever been sick before and had to go on air?
Yes.
And we're kind of an asshole.
Many times. I'm not kind of an asshole every day. I mean,
no, you're not. But seriously, when you're sick and have to perform,
yes,
do you tend to be almost even more focused?
Yes.
And pissed?
Yeah. It's funny. Some of my best shows are when I'm really sick.
Exactly.
Right.
So again, I mean, sure, I had the flu. I had 102 fever. I mean, did I overblow? Cops follow me around? Yeah. But the point is, it happened. It's on video. Okay, just type in. I mean, we actually caught 2 of them on tape. But listen,
how you doing financially, by the way? I mean, you're on 140 stations. You got to be making serious money, right?
I do make a little bit of cash, and that's why I've got around 50 crew members and news people, and I don't know how many square feet, like 14,000. No, it's more. It's like 18,000 square feet.
And you put the show on the Internet as well?
Absolutely, sure. I mean, I'm on XM, on 166, and we're on, it's a little over 150 stations right now. And then we're also on Infowars.com with the audio streams, and the podcast is about 600,000 people.
And, Alex, what happened to you if there was a time that you got fired by a ton of radio stations because you said 9/11 was an inside job by President Bush? That put you on the map, right, as sort of the leading conspiracy guy.
Well, actually, I had gotten up to about 100 stations in 2000, 2001 because I was bashing Clinton for his agenda. And then all I said was, not that Bush had a plunger and was, there like Wile E. Coyote detonating the towers. That's kind of how the media has spun it. It was in Newsweek that hijackers were trained at U.S. military bases. And as a news hound, I was reading this in Newsweek as just a footnote. I was reading about Bush Sr. in the London Guardian and AP with the Carlyle Group and the bin Laden family at his table in D.C. that morning. I was reading about when all air traffic was grounded for 2 days, 16 flights of the bin Ladens out of the country with the FBI helping load them on planes to fly them out, including his, sisters and brothers and people. I remember reading about Colonel Stephen Butler in the San Jose Mercury News wrote a letter. And I called the guy at home, and he said, I can't talk to you. I'm getting threats. They started court-martialing him over it. Look this up, Howard. This is just some of the data points. He said, look, I don't know what happened, but Muhammad Atta was in my class. He was a spy. He was a U.S. agent. Then I interviewed Springman, the head of the visa section of the U.S. Embassy in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, and he said that they were ordered. And this came out in the Toronto, news, New York news. It was just back of the paper that they were ordered to let 15 of the 19 hijackers in from Saudi Arabia the year before 9/11, and it was flagged as Al-Qaeda, and they were told by the CIA.
So what you're saying is you believe that somehow the government used these guys, let them do their thing, Therefore, it would disrupt the world and would get us enable us to go into Iraq and to go into possibly Iran. In other words, this was all staged.
Well, no, I mean, listen, it doesn't mean the whole government or the whole military. It doesn't mean there's not Muslim extremists and Al-Qaeda. Of course there is. Look, here's an example, Howard. You can look up L.A. Times, New York Times, you name it. They now have to admit it. Our government, the Peace Prize winning president, put over 60,000 Al-Qaeda in Benghazi to then take over Libya and kick Gaddafi out, who was actually working with the West. And now Al-Qaeda's taken the country over in Sharia law and the abuse of the women. Now our government is attacking Assad, who's not a good guy, but compared to Al-Qaeda, he's an angel. Our government and NATO is backing Al-Qaeda in Syria in a 22-month takeover. But then when I want to go fly, I've got to have TSA look for bin Laden underneath my balls. So it's a bunch of crap. They're using it to take my liberty. I'll face whatever so-called danger there is, real or manufactured. Stop using Al-Qaeda to take my liberties. And now look at Homeland Security, Howard. You saw it in the news a few years ago. They said the #1 terror threat is returning veterans, gun owners, conservatives, libertarians. They're now flipping the script to say it isn't Al-Qaeda, forget them. No, it's libertarians. They're the new terrorists. And that's my problem, just briefly, with Glenn Beck. Look, I got offers 10, 12 years ago. Hey, stop covering this New World Order. You know, the big syndicators will put you on 500 stations, Alex. And I wouldn't shut up, and so I lost about 70 of my stations. I didn't care. I've built it back up to about 150 now because I'm not going to compromise. It isn't just about success. It's about living in a free country.
Explain to me this whole theory you have about putting chemicals in juice boxes to turn children gay. You believe that there's
now,
a chemical...
why would you want to do that?
Yeah, why do we want to turn everyone gay? Number one. I mean, who's behind that movement? And what chemical is there that can turn you gay?
All right. Now, specifically, I did an hour-long show 4 years ago that got picked up, a hour-long TV special that I did that got picked up by the Huffington Post about 4 or 5 years ago. So it's become this meme where they took out of context where I was showing literally more than 100 articles, and I actually printed some of those off. I'm going to source for you right now. So I was reading about bisphenol A and about hydrofluorosilicic acid and several other chemicals that are in the water, but also in the particular plastics that line the juice box I was showing on air. And I said, in this whole hour-long breakdown rant/news, while I'm showing all these articles and major studies about how the fish are becoming bisexual, the frogs, the amphibians are becoming bisexual, how the fish are committing suicide because of the Prozac in the water, the shrimp are committing suicide. Folks, if you think I'm joking, just type in shrimp committing suicide.
That is pretty funny, shrimp committing suicide.
Folks, I'm not joking. Look, I swear to God.
Sometimes, Alex,
bisexual fish.
Yeah, sometimes I think, but I think you see the humor in some of this. I do believe that. Yeah.
No. It's so crazy. I laugh at how insane it is. But
this is crazy. So you think, because there seems to be...
don't you think that your arguments are so far out there? Because you don't have to get that far out.
Although I got to tell you something. When I went to summer camp, there was a known thing that they would douse us with a thing called saltpeter. Now, I'm not kidding. And so you know what saltpeter is?
You saw them doing this, Howard.
I didn't see them doing it, but we were told it was to reduce our sex drive, and they put it in the food.
And how horny were you?
It didn't slow me down. I'm so fucking crazy when it comes to sex that it just made me normal. You know what I'm talking about? So maybe, but who the hell is putting?
No, see, my theory. Wait a minute, Alex, because I know, I can buy some of your argument, but you don't have to go that far out to make the case that the government is not protecting
but maybe he does,
citizens.
Or else then he doesn't have a radio show.
No.
Well, that's true.
Robin, my problem is truth is so extreme and crazy that it's worse than I'm saying. Listen, here's
Hey, Alex, explain, too, how does a shrimp commit suicide? I mean, I'm just curious.
Yeah. When are they jumping off?
Yeah, like, what do they do to commit suicide? All right.
The serotonin reuptake inhibitors, one of hundreds of chemicals in the runoff, the serotonin reuptake inhibitors of the Prozac family, Luvox, all that stuff, it kills inhibition. So when you're having a nice day, everything's fine. But that's why the insert says can make you commit suicide or go on a killing spree, because when you have a bad trip, it's in the psychotropic hallucinogen class, then you don't have the compulsion control anymore. And so it's the same thing with shrimp. Crazy
Yeah, but
amounts.
what are they doing?
Well,
yeah, but how do you
They
kill
swim
yourself?
right up. Normally, shrimp hide down in the undergrowth in the seagrass. Shrimp become aggressive and go feed right at the surface and don't care about being eaten. Just type in, please, fish committing suicide because of chemicals in the water.
And you say there are more bisexual fish.
Listen.
How do you
know?
know?
About, in some cases,
he seems to know.
Half the fish. Listen,
yeah.
Exactly. You've now been at the store, I'm sure, and seen it says, hey, our plasticware is bisphenol A, BPA free.
Right.
Okay, because of my work and countless others' work and mothers caring about their kids, they are, by law in Canada and Europe, removed bisphenol A, one of just dozens of these plastic chemicals that are, quote, estrogen mimickers. And what the Huffington Post didn't report 4 years ago when they made fun of me was the rest of my video. They clipped out that short clip where I was saying, why is breast cancer up 3,000% in the United States? And why are we leading the world in it? And I showed studies that bisphenol A hyper-feminizes women. That's why they're going into puberty now at 6, 7, 8 years old, having kids at 10. Instead of 14 being the average puberty, and that it makes males feminine, women hyper-feminine, and then accelerates the aging of the cells in the mammaries and other sexual cells that are generally the ones that end up developing cancer. So a 30-year-old woman at the cellular level has the breast DNA of an 85-year-old woman. Bisphenol A is killing women. My grandmother is almost 90. She's got breast cancer. But what about young women? What about my wife? What about my daughters? What about my wife's mother who had a mastectomy? This is a serious issue. And I said, we can make jokes about juice boxes making little boys gay, but this is giving women breast cancer. And they cut it out and said, oh, look at the right winger, saying they want to make kids gay. That isn't what it was even about. It's a byproduct.
Are you anti?
How do you stand on gay marriage?
Where are you on gay marriage? I don't care about it.
Well, listen, I'm a libertarian, so I think people should be able to do whatever they want.
Yeah, right.
Good. Okay.
What happened when you went to...
So this is not a homophobic thing.
What happened when you went on the show The View? Was it a disaster? I didn't see tape of that.
No, it was great. I mean, I took it over.
Right.
But, I mean, what's the point? They wanted to basically make fun of Charlie Sheen when I was on there.
Right.
And,
is he your buddy?
I've known Charlie for about 8 years. I probably stayed at his house 15 times. He's a really, really interesting fellow. And
that I would say, yes.
And
what happened?
Reality is beyond even what people hear. He's a really, really smart guy.
So, like, when you go over Charlie's house because you become friendly, he's a fan of yours, right? He buys into a lot of your theories.
Sure, but I shouldn't have let the meltdown happen a year and a half ago on my show because it was first Martin Sheen and Emilio Estevez that were listeners. It was Emilio that turned him onto the show in my films, and then Charlie invited me out there, called me back in like 2005. And then,
was it culture shock for you when you went over his house?
No, well, back then he was all clean and just incredibly smart and incredible energy. The guy would sit there, up till 2 a.m. just talking about quantum mechanics and stuff.
Does he know what he's talking about?
Oh, he does. But see, the issue is, and he explained.
Well, how would you know? Do you know quantum mechanics?
I do.
I'm into stuff like that. Sure, I mean, that's what I'm into.
That's your thing.
Charlie described it this way. He said, I go through phases. He goes through phases where he goes and rents an industrial telescope to be able to, shoot video with the Department of Defense telescope of geoengineering going on. And then he goes through a thing where he's studying ancient manuscripts. And then he goes through a phase where...
but maybe he's like...
seven hookers a day.
Yeah, right. Were you ever there with the hookers and saw that whole thing?
No, I was just joking.
Did he ever try to do drugs with you?
No, listen, I've never seen him do drugs. All I've seen him is smoke Marlboro Reds and drink tons of coffee.
Were you ever into drugs?
I've been honest about it. Growing up in Dallas, Texas, I experimented with this and that, but every time sure.
Pot?
Yes.
Ludes?
I never really liked, I tried hard drugs once or twice.
LSD?
I'm not going to discuss that.
Uh-oh.
The point.
What do you mean you're not going to discuss
What
it?
do you mean?
What do you mean? Alex,
What do you
you're
mean?
on it. Alex, did you do LSD?
I'm not going to. No, I didn't. I didn't have sex with that woman, Monica Lewinsky. No.
Why don't you talk about drug use? Seriously.
I smoked pot, but I didn't inhale.
Did you? How come you don't? Do you want to run for office or something?
Listen here, I got to tell you something, Howard. I did not have sex with that woman. I've never done LSD.
Alex, why don't you talk about that? You seem pretty honest. Why don't you talk about stuff like that?
Because it's a distraction and overall diversion, and I might have a glass of wine now.
Right.
And I don't even smoke cigars anymore. So, I mean, that's basically it.